to my world. Won't you come on in?
Hej, mit navn det er Stig Ulriksen, og welcome to my world. I denne uge har jeg fået besøg af en sangskriver og en komponist. Hun har skrevet en bog. Hun har skrevet den her bog om hendes liv med blandt andet Elvis Presley og Bruce Jenner. Den hedder A Little Thing Called Life, og det skal vi snakke en lille smule om her i dag. Welcome, Linda Thompson.
Thank you so much. You'll have to forgive my Danish. It's just a little rusty.
Ah, yeah, but we can try it out a little bit later in the
Oh
program,
no,
right?
I never knew there were so many letters in the alphabet.
Danish is a very difficult language to
Yes.
speak.
Yes.
I have big troubles with it, and I've tried it for 51 years
And many
now.
dialects, you were saying, which is amazing.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
A lot of them. And I still haven't learned to speak the correct dialect for this part of Denmark, so I'm sorry. But now today we are going to speak English, and we're going to talk a little bit about your new book came out a couple of years ago.
Yes,
but
it did.
it's new for us in Denmark. And what made you decide to finally write a book about your life?
Wow, you know, it's a good question. I waited 40 years after Elvis's passing, and almost 40 years, and so I never wanted to be accused of capitalizing or exploiting my relationship with him. So that's why I never wrote a book for almost 40 years about my relationship with Elvis. And I respectfully had to wait until Caitlin came out as herself, the former Bruce Jenner, the father of my children. I respectfully waited for her to make her announcement, and then I thought, I've got to write this book because my life has been so extraordinary and, you know, such a learning curve and such a challenge that I wanted to be able to share with others what I learned and how I felt. And I think, you know, our biggest reason for being here is that, you know, we can share with each other and help each other along the way. So I felt a real keen responsibility to life itself to talk about my life.
And also, as you write in the book, for your sons, so they
Yes.
can get the questions that they may not ask.
Yeah,
answer.
that's true. And you know, kids have a way of not being that curious about their parents until their parents maybe, and even older parents. So I wanted to document part of my life. There's certainly not everything in my life in that book. There are some things that are better left unsaid, and there were things that I edited out of my own accord. But it's still, you don't have to sensationalize the book because my life has been so crazy and so sensationalized, you know, as it is.
And writing a book like this must have taken a lot of time, a lot of years maybe?
Well, I think 60. No, it took us about 60 years to live it. But, you know, it was very difficult. I'd like to say that it was a labor of love, which of course it was, because I tried to lovingly write about the people that I've cared about in my life. But it was very difficult because there is such a responsibility to those living and passed on, you know, to do them justice and to try to understand their journey in life. You know, I have my own journey in life and my own life experiences, but they too have had theirs. You know, whether it was Elvis's problem with prescription drugs, or whether it was Bruce Jenner struggling with his gender identity for his whole life. So they have had their struggles, their experience with life, and I had to be very careful to respect that and to have a lot of empathy for them, and tolerance and understanding, and forgiveness too. It's an important aspect of our lives, I think.
It's also some kind of challenge for you. You fall for the men who, in some way or another, have some things to struggle with, you know, whatever it is to become a woman, or it's prescripted drugs.
Those are just the ones worthy of writing about. There have been other men.
Those are the exciting ones.
Yes, those are the ones that were, you know, the most kind of learning experience in life, and the most challenging, as you put it.
And you come actually from the same place like Elvis. You
Yes.
actually grew
Yes.
up in the same neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you started out in life with your mother and father and family?
Yeah, well, my dad was a blue-collar worker. You know, he was high school educated, but not college educated. And my mom was from a very poor family, so she didn't even finish high school. But they really tried to imbue in Sam and me the importance of education because they were not afforded that opportunity. So, you know, we learned very early on that it was very important for us to get a good education, which we both did. As you know, Sam is a retired judge, and I spent 4 years at the University of Memphis, which was Memphis State when I went there, and I studied English and drama, and I've incorporated both of those studies into my vocation. I've been an actress. You know, I've done a lot of television back in the States, was on a TV show for 15 years. I was a regular on a country music variety show with a lot of skits and comedy. And as a lyricist, as a songwriter, my English training has really come in handy, and you know, the poetry and prose and all the things that I studied, Shakespeare. So, you know, and Elvis and I did grow up, you know, with the same sort of Southern familial background. You know, we were very much kindred spirits when we first met. We kind of knew each other before we knew each other, because I knew how he had grown up with the religious fervor, the Southern cuisine, the sense of strong ties to family. You know, everything that was important to me was important to him.
And you became a beauty queen, obviously, because you're so beautiful. But what made you volunteer for being a part of beauty contests?
I actually was recruited. I didn't really volunteer. I never thought of myself as, you know, exceptionally pretty or anything. I always wanted to carve out a good personality and just, you know, be kind to people. So that was my biggest sort of aspiration in life, to be beautiful on the inside. But when I was in high school and was homecoming queen, I was spotted by a recruiter for this Miss Shelby County. It was the first beauty pageant, and they called me and said, would you please enter Miss Shelby County? And I said, well, I don't know what to do. And they said, well, there's talent, and there's the evening gown and swimsuit competition, and then there's also the all-important question that they ask you, and you answer that you just want world peace, something like that. So that was my first pageant. And then I just thought, you know, my family was not wealthy. I was going to have to work, which I did work to put myself through college. And I just thought, this is a wonderful way to win scholarships. I won thousands and thousands of dollars worth of scholarships from my college education. I won automobiles, luggage, wardrobe. So it turned out to be kind of another job as well as the job that I was working. Just when I would win a beauty title, I would be afforded all these wonderful gifts and scholarships. So that's really what drew me to it. It was not because I thought I was the cutest, you know, or the smartest. I just thought this is a great opportunity.
And actually, being this beauty queen of Tennessee, it helped you actually meeting Elvis Presley. I think in some way it was an old friend of yours, Tiki Shepard, you ran into one day together with another beauty queen.
Yes.
And can you tell that story?
Yes, my roommate in the Miss USA pageant was Miss Rhode Island, Jeannie LeMay, and she and I became very fast best friends. And she moved to Memphis after the Miss USA pageant, and she and I were walking down the street one day in Memphis, and we stopped into TGI Fridays, which is, I don't know if you have those here, but it's a hamburger place. And T.G. Shepard was there with some friends of his, and he said, Linda, come over, you know, let us buy you lunch. And then he said, would you like to come to the Memphian Theater tonight to meet Elvis? And Jeannie said, yes, we'll be there. So I said, no, well, we're not sure, we have to work. And she said, no, we'll be there. So had it not been for Jeannie, I probably would have just said, no, thank you, we're busy tonight. So it just, everything fell into place. You know, I believe in life and it's unfolding as it's meant to, and timing is everything. So just walking down the street, running into him, being invited to the Memphian Theater that evening. So Jeannie and I went to the theater. He didn't rent the theater out until about midnight after it closed. We didn't have screening rooms back then, and no DVDs or anything. Well, we did have DVDs when we had tapes. You know, we used to watch Monty Python, Elvis and I did, on TV with the tapes. But so he rented this theater out, and Jeannie and I went at midnight, and I was introduced to him. And like I said, from the moment he saw me and the moment I saw him, you know, it was just kind of like, boom, see you, know you, love you. And he came and sat next to me in the movie theater, and told me that he was not married any longer, because I was very standoffish in the beginning. You know, I thought, oh, this, you know, it's Elvis Presley, and he's maybe he does this kind of thing. I didn't really trust that he was like trying to snuggle up to me. And he said, honey, you know, I'm not married anymore. And I said, no, because it hadn't been announced to the press yet. So he had been separated for about 7 months. And he said, where have you been? I've been looking for someone like you all my life, really. He said, I've always wanted to be with someone Southern, someone who knew me, you know, knew how I grew up, knew the kind of emotional needs that a man like me has. And so we really hit it off right away.
Yeah, according to the book, it was actually you who was a little bit naughty, saying to him that the reason he hadn't found a girl yet was because he didn't find somebody from...
Yeah. So he said, where have you been all my life? And I said, growing up, because he was a bit older. But he said that evening, you know, when he told me he was getting divorced, or he was not yet divorced, but had been separated for 7 months, he said, you know, we're going to go through this divorce. And I said, well, I'm really sorry to hear that, but you should have married a Southern girl. And then that's when he said, you're absolutely right, I've been looking for this my whole life. And it was very sweet. He was very romantic, you know, and very loving and affectionate.
Do you think it can have some influence on him also, that you were very good in giving him answers back and telling him things, compared to maybe what he was used to, that many people were so starstruck that just,
I think,
you know, you were a little bit on top of things,
sure,
giving back quickly, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a good observation, and I think you're absolutely right on with that, because I had sort of developed my own self-confidence as a beauty queen, you know, as a title holder, and having met many celebrated people. I had hosted Bob Hope, if you know who that is.
Of course.
So I had hosted Bob Hope when he came to Memphis, Danny Thomas, who started St. Jude Children's Hospital in Memphis, and so I had met a lot of dignitaries already as Miss Liberty Bowl, or Miss Tennessee, or Miss Memphis State, or, you know, all the little plethora of titles that I had won. So I had already built up enough confidence to be able to speak, you know, eye to eye directly with someone and not feel very intimidated, just to realize we're all people, we're all, you know, thrust in this life together. And we all have a lot of more commonalities, more things in common than things that separate us, I think. So I think that did behoove me, you know, in dealing with Elvis, because I wasn't really intimidated by him.
And also having a man who just been together with for 1 day, going away on holiday for 2 weeks, and the poor man can't get in touch with you. That's the worst thing for a man who's falling in love with a woman, you know.
Yeah, I mean, for a man to say, you know, I want you to meet my dad the next night, which I went over to Graceland, and he took me on a tour of Graceland, and I met Vernon Presley, his father, and, you know, Elvis was just like, I want you to be with me. He kept saying, I want you to be with me. I want to be with you. And I said, well, that's great, but I have to go on vacation, you know. I want to be with you too. Like, I want to date you, whatever. But so I went on vacation to a remote part of Alabama, Gulf Shores, Alabama. And back in the day, we didn't have cell phones, and we didn't even have a phone in our little cabin. It was on the beach, very remote. And for 2 weeks, he couldn't reach me. And I pined away. I have to be honest, I was just pining away for him, thinking, oh, hell, I'll probably never hear from him again. It was so great to kiss him and, you know, be held by him, but he's a movie star and he's a big rock icon. I'll probably never hear from him again. I'm probably one of many girls, you know. So I was just sort of heartbroken that I had to leave. And the moment we came back, we drove. It's like a 10-hour drive from Alabama back to Memphis. By the time I got to the door, opened the door of my house, the phone was ringing, and apparently Joe Esposito had just incessantly been trying to call me. He said, where have you been? I've got your number memorized, and the boss wants to talk to you. Whoa, hold on, he's taking the phone away from me. And Elvis grabbed the phone. He said, where the hell have you been? I said, I told you I was going on vacation for 2 weeks. He said, you didn't tell me you were going to drop off the face of the earth. And he said, honey, who the hell do you think I am anyway? I'm Elvis Presley. When I say I want you with me, I want you with me. And I said, okay, well, we just got home. And he said, I want you on a plane in the morning. I said, it was 10 o'clock at night, something like that. I said, oh, well, we just got home. I still have sand between my toes. He said, I don't care. I want you on the plane tomorrow morning. I'm buying you a ticket and flying you out to Los Angeles, which I said, okay. How do you say no to Elvis, you know?
And that's the next thing it must have been for you. One thing is that, of course, you knew him as this big idol. and then you, of course, start dating him, become what do you call it, girlfriend, boyfriend, and then suddenly you probably find out about that he's also just human. He's
Very
not this
human.
big star, he's a human. How long time did it go for you before you start realizing, okay, maybe he's a big star, but he's also human and he just needs human things?
Right. Well, I knew that right away. It didn't take long for me to ascertain that because, as I said, I had already built up enough confidence to realize we're all human. And I think, I write about this in my book, that I think we do celebrated famous people a huge disservice by putting them up on a pedestal and not allowing them to be human in our eyes. You know, we all are fallible, we are all human, and to put people up on a pedestal and criticize them for every little move they make that's not godly, you know, and not godlike, it's a disservice to them, it's unfair to them. So I learned right away that Elvis had a lot more human qualities than a lot of us have. You know, everything that Elvis did was bigger, deeper, stronger. You know, he was such a passionate man and such a kind and considerate and sensitive soul. So I learned very early on that, you know, you have to kind of guard his feelings and not say anything harshly or abruptly, you know, because he was so sensitive and he was just such an extraordinary human being and flawed, yes, but, you know, some of the greatest people have the greatest flaws.
But being with Elvis as the man he is, as your brother Sam once said, Elvis was not a one-woman man.
No, he was not monogamous.
No.
No.
You believed very much in just you and I, not you and I, but Elvis and you and your man.
Yeah.
When did you realize that this man was so popular that you had no chance in the world to have him for yourself?
Well, you know, the first year that we were together, we literally were together 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 365 days. There was no break in our togetherness. So I knew the first year that we were together, he certainly was very faithful because he didn't have a chance not to be. But, you know, he talked to me. We were very close to each other. We were very intimate. And there were times when we were like brother and sister, best friends. So I knew he had never been faithful, not during his marriage and not during any relationship that he had ever had before, because he confided that to me. And I probably, in my naivete, I was hoping that it would be different with me, and especially because he was coming from such a hurt and wounded place, having been through the separation and the divorce. And Priscilla was with Mike Stone, their karate instructor. So he had been very deeply wounded, and his pride was hurt. And you know, sometimes we learn lessons through life that change us. So I think that I naively thought maybe that had changed him and that he could be faithful to me, which he was for the first year, and he broke his fidelity record. He told me that. He said, honey, I've never been faithful to anybody since I was 19, but for this year I've been totally faithful to you, but I think we need a little break in our togetherness. So it was very hurtful, you know, because he was my first love. So I was in it for the long haul. I was in it forever, and am very monogamous. And he just wasn't, you know, he really had a great love for women and just kind of an unbridled passion. And he was just, in that respect, you know, kind of a little bad boy.
But also in many ways, as far as I've been reading, he also just were happy being with women. It was not because he needed to necessarily have sex or anything like that. Just having a good conversation, talk about things that had his interest, and especially maybe talking about his mother also, as far as I heard. Is that true?
And again, you know, we love our children. You're a father, I'm a mother. We love our children unconditionally. And loving Elvis was as close to loving the parental love that I've ever felt until I had my children, because I truly did love him unconditionally. I loved him in spite of whatever situation would cause me pain, and that was if he needed to be with someone else just to talk about philosophy. You're right, he didn't always, in fact, he kind of infrequently had sex with other women. It was more to just talk to them, more to show off, buy them a car, or do something, you know, kind of showy. And you know, he would talk to me about it sometimes, and I didn't like it. It hurt me, but I understood it. And I think that's the whole thing about life. We don't have to understand something sometimes to just accept it and to be kind about it. You know, that's the whole thing with Bruce and Caitlin. I didn't understand transgender. I didn't, especially 32 years ago. But I thought, I don't have to understand this, just to be kind to him and be tolerant, you know. So I think I was that way with Elvis too. Like, I didn't understand how someone could be in love and want to be with other people. I was very naive too and very young. Now, you know, you go through a lot of things in life and you see a lot of situations. Now I kind of get people are just human. We're all just human, you know.
With Elvis, just to finish the story about Elvis, he had the problems with the prescripted drugs. I can read in your book that you saw it early that he had some kind of problem with those drugs. Actually, already on the first time he called you, he was sounding very tired.
That's right.
But was it ever something that you thought, oh, this is some big problem for our relationship, or was it just something you said, oh, this is just how it is?
Well, you know, because I was so young and so naive and so inexperienced in life. My parents didn't drink. You know, they never did drugs. We didn't have alcohol in the house. So I grew up Southern Baptist, and I was just such a poly pure heart. You know, I thought maybe that's the way the world is, maybe especially in entertainment, when someone has to go on stage and come off stage. And I was trying to wrap my brain around why he needed sleeping medication, why he needed something to help rev him up for his stage productions and stage performance. So I again tried to understand that, but yeah, it was problematic from the very beginning because I was worried about him. You know, I was concerned enough to try to talk to him about it, and he couldn't fire me. I didn't work for him. So I would say, why do you have to take that? And shouldn't you get rid of that? And shouldn't you just try this and exercise, or, you know, to try to wear yourself out so you can get some sleep? And, you know, we would have long discussions about it. And I think he realized it was a bit of a problem, but he was very, very deep into it. And you know, by the way, had been since he was in the Army. He said that the Army prescribed Dexedrine to him to keep him awake on his Army post. So it was not a new thing. A lot of people think, you know, well, he went through the divorce and then he just went, you know, started using drugs. And he was always on sleeping medication and always on uppers and downers and pain medication.
And according to Lama Frank and Martin Lager, he actually had it from home also. His mother was taking sleeping pills and other things. And it was very normal actually back in those days in America to take these kind of things. The truck drivers who had to drive 200 kilometers needed it also.
Exactly.
Everybody took it. They didn't know it was that dangerous.
Right.
And of course then sometimes, for some people it can just be, oh, then I need to try this, I need to try this, you know. And they think it's harmless in some way.
Certainly if you have a predilection toward drug abuse, and I believe that we all genetically have predilections toward certain behaviors, and his family, certainly there was that predisposition to be alcoholic or drug addict, you know. It's just, sometimes it's in the genes, and it's good to be aware of that and then never start it because you may have a problem with it.
And he stayed away from alcohol.
Yes,
most of the
he never
time,
drank,
right?
yeah. One time in the 4.5 years that we lived together, I only saw him drink one time, and he got very drunk. So I put him to bed.
And one day you decided, or he decided, that it should be the end of it. But it was very similar. It was something like in a hotel where he just said, honey, you know I love you, you better go back to Memphis, or something like that. Is that true?
Well, but it was not, it was supposed to be just, I was going to go back to Memphis as I came and went always. But this time I made the decision that I would leave Graceland. I did go back to Memphis, but the last time I saw him was in San Francisco, so it's like the old song, I Left My Heart in San Francisco by Tony Bennett. I think about that every time I hear that song, because the last time I saw Elvis alive, he was playing the Cow Palace, and he said, honey, you know, I know you'd probably like to go back and visit with your family. Why don't you go back to Memphis? I brought the plane in from Memphis, and it's going to take you back tomorrow. And I said, really? You brought the plane in just for me? And he said, yeah, sweetheart. Thought maybe you'd like to visit your family. And I said, yeah, I would. That's fine. But I'm sure you didn't bring the plane in just for me. Are you sure you didn't bring another girl in from Memphis? No, honey, you know I wouldn't do that. And it was just, I remember like looking into his gorgeous blue eyes, and he was so sincere and just lying through his teeth like, no, there's nobody else. I wouldn't do that. And then he said, but this is the part I do believe. He said, look at me in the eye. He said, I love you. I don't love anybody else. No matter what you ever see, what you ever hear or read, I love you and I don't love anybody else. And I said, okay. All right. And I believed him, and I still believe that to this day at that moment. I think probably he fell in love again, but for that moment, but I just didn't want to live like that anymore. I didn't want to live at his whim and beck and call. It was like, you can stay now, you can go now. Now I want you to stay, now I want you to go. It's like pretty soon you just have no sense of yourself anymore. And I think it's an unhealthy situation when you don't have control of your own life. So as much as I loved him and as much as it was painful to leave him, I wrote him a letter and quoted the prophet, Khalil Gibran, the prophet. I've already known the pain of too much tenderness. I said, you are and will always remain the love of my life. And in all honesty, I don't want to love that way again because I lost myself in him. I just gave so much of myself. So I made the decision to leave Graceland, and I think he was shocked. I think he was a little shocked and hurt, but I think he understood. And I wanted a normal life. I wanted to have children, and I wanted a normal life, so I married Bruce Jenner. Okay, life will certainly play tricks on you sometimes. I got anything but the normal life. But I got two wonderful sons, and I wouldn't change it. I write about it in the book. If Bruce had told me this impossibly masculine, world-class athlete, he was the world's greatest athlete, the decathlon champion. It holds the title of world's greatest athlete. If he had told me, hey, I like to dress up in women's clothes, and I may one day want to get, a gender reassignment, I would have said, check please, I'm out. But he didn't, and I'm glad he didn't, because I wouldn't have married him and I wouldn't have had my children. So it just kind of adds credence to my philosophy that we just have to trust life and know that it unfolds as it's meant to, and we just need to accept whatever life sends our way and try to assimilate it and make sense of it and maybe pass whatever we've learned on to our fellow man and try to help somebody else along the way.
And you also been acting for a long time. This Hee-Haw was running for 15 seasons or something like
25.
25
I was the new
seasons.
girl. It ran on the air for 25 years, and then I was on for 15 years. I replaced Barbie Benton on that show. But I did a lot of shows for Aaron Spelling. I guest starred on a lot of TV shows, and I did like 5 pilots, they're called pilots when they're just, like a special show that could go to series.
Did it came natural for you to start acting, or did you need to go to some school and get some
I was
teaching?
a drama major in college, English and drama, so I had a little bit of, coaching then, and I did study a little bit in Los Angeles with a few different acting coaches, and Rick Walters and Ida Lupino even. John O'Grady, who was Elvis's private PI, got me into a class with Ida Lupino, a private class. She was an old actress like in the Betty Davis era, So that was kind of trippy.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
We don't have so much time, but just one quick question, actually 2 quick questions. When you look back at your life, which of the things that you have been working with and done are you most proud of?
I take the most pride, and I am so grateful for my sons, Brandon and Brody Jenner.
That was the next question.
That's if I did nothing in my life, if I had never written a song, if I had never been in front of a camera acting or hosting or doing anything else or doing any other sort of philanthropic work for St. Jude's, anything else that I've ever done in my life, if I am known as a good mother, that's the most important thing to me. There's nothing more important to me than my sons, Brandon and Brody. So I'm most proud of them. Brody is a DJ. He just was playing in Ibiza with Martin Garrix, who's like the top DJ in the world. So Brody just opened for him. And in fact, both my sons are in Ibiza right now. And Brandon has a new EP out called Face the World.
Face the World. And we should actually hear a little part of that song here in the program also.
Yeah.
And I think we can end by hearing that song because you have to go to the next press meeting and things. So thank you very much for giving time for this talk.
Thank you so much. You're delightful, and Denmark is lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Og det er med nået frem til vejs ende af Welcome to my World i denne her uge. Jeg vil gerne sige tusind tak, fordi I kiggede med, og jeg håber at se jer alle sammen tilbage igen i næste uge.
I didn't want to turn my back on you, but I had to face the world.